This mic.
During my first presentation, I introduced the most common problems in Africa and what these issues are and what is being done to solve these problems. But during this discussion, I want to talk about the misconceptions in Africa, what we believe is the government is doing, what is actually being done, what can be done to help people in Africa, and how this isn't good enough. The first misconception is that people in Africa that Americans should not give money in donations to people in Africa because all this money going into is a corrupt government that is not spending money on people in East Africa that need it, but is only being spent on people in West Africa that already have a substantial amount of food and drinking water, and they're not dying from disease every day. And also, people believe that all the money is being spent on their government, and their government is taking their money and spending it on themselves. But the truth to this is that the government is not spending money on people in East Africa that need the money, but the government is spending most of the donation money on repaying old debts from the past several years that has never been paid back. And instead of paying for people that need money for vaccinations and food and clean drinking water, they're spending all their money on debts that don't need to be paid back because the money was being given to them in the first place to pay for what they needed donation money for. I believe the way to help this problem is for Americans, the American government uses all other wealthy countries to forgive this debt and not need the debt to be repaid, but they should spend money on things that they need to be spent on. The second misconception is that Americans don't need to be donating money to Africa because none of the money is being spent on their diseases and their starvation. That is the only way that they're going to be able to really benefit from it. And they're not going to be able to benefit from it long term if none of the money is being spent on what it needs to be spent on. This is true, but I believe that America should be able to control the money that's being sent there. I believe that America and all other wealthy countries that are donating money should be able to control the money that's being spent there and spend it on what they feel is needed, because after all, it is our money that is being donated, not the African government. And I believe that all this money should be spent on ways to help prevent more diseases from happening and more deaths. A single mosquito net is $6. We can prevent several deaths from happening. A single measles vaccination to prevent measles from spreading. It's only $1 each vaccination, and somebody dies in sub-Saharan Africa every second because of measles. HIV and AIDS is $4 for a vaccination per person, and that takes the lives of 7,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa every day. And also, I believe that Africa should spend more money on clean drinking water and food as well. The third most common misconception is that Africa is just dry desert that does not have any natural resources. There's nothing to be gained from there economically, and other countries other than Africa can't benefit from Africa. The problem with this is that Africa is full of natural resources, a lot of which other countries are in need of and don't have enough of, but it can't be processed, and there's not enough workers to be able to get these resources. Africa is #1 in gold, diamonds, and oil, and most of these resources have not been touched yet, or have barely been touched. But if there was trade routes established between Africa and other countries, I believe that we could trade some of our resources that could help their country, and they could trade resources from their country to help other countries that need their resources more. And this can also benefit them economically and get them jump-started on providing more money for the people to live off of, and also in education, so that more workers can have training on being able to have jobs. In conclusion, a lot of people believe that nothing can be done to help people in Africa, but actually there's a lot that can be done. Once people in Africa are not spreading diseases and they're able to create a life for themselves and have an education, because most of the people in Africa do not have an education, or over half of children in Africa don't have an education, and most of those that do have an education aren't able to finish their schooling because of deaths and things like that, or not being able to provide materials for education. But I believe once this debt is relieved, more people will be able to supply enough materials for them to be able to live off of, and we won't need to donate any more money to them. Thank you. How long is that? 6 minutes.
How long is that? 7 minutes.
5 minutes.
5?
Project?